Okay, so definitely I'm still sticking to my basically impression that basically precisely what has like right now has like my kind of from like entered like within nation like all the great number of students person that precisely noted my kind of definitely like I'm also trying like those precise exact same students that have earlier bullied Mike and I'm also trying like them to definitely would have been present amongst that great number of students presented like the information so that they would have definitely noticed this new character, this new person like 11 beside like Mike and his son. So like definitely I'm something like after like the scenario that I'm preparing and switching on to definitely that like after like the whole gymnasium thing I'm also putting like after that like Mike and his friends like through like the radio from like the school. Uh, from the school, like I'm supposed to bring through that more powerful and intense radio way. I'm supposed to bring them to like only succeed in like able to communicate with like with for like and that would be like the first time that Mike would be like my kind of friends would be actually be able to like properly communicate to when after like when disappear like that would be happening precisely at that point of like the scenario that I lived it on the time. So like after that like I'm totally like Mike and his friends would be totally overjoyed and happy with that my friends who had like that whole suspicion towards like the things Mike was saying, like basically. Then finally, at that point, like on communicating to the on being able to communicate with like Will, like finally being convinced at that point, and like because of that, like them all being like extremely excited and joyful, and they would be like leaving the school in like an extremely joyful manner. When I'm putting this very same fully going to bring to like show up and I'm going to bring like them to like this time precisely I'm going to bring specifically my person for like two positive either them straight away targeting showing up and then straight away targeting Mike once again and going to putting at that point like 11 totally coming to like Mike's support you and basically putting like those bullies in their place. That's like one possible scenario that I'm considering. The other possible scenario that I'm considering is for like the bullies to be curious about this like new kid I mean my a new person like I mean like my friends like this like new person and then or 11 like and I'm considering them maybe trying to like bully 11 and at that point, 11 using her superpower and basically that they're putting the release in the plate. It's like this could be either one of these two possibilities matter and it's totally perfect. And my story international right. And definitely my personal impression that like these those bullies and those bringing would be definitely trying to like bully either Mike or 11 perfectly on the premises outside of the school. But like I'm also putting like totally like, absolutely luckily for like Mike and his like friends and 11 numbers precisely I'm putting like once like 11 would be using her superpowers and putting those bullies in their place. Like at that point, even though I'm considering like actually at that point like the bullies being totally they are getting scared and like confused and then totally running away scared. It's like the scenario that I'm thinking. I mean, but like I'm totally luckily left to be in like my kind of friend and I learned forever with like absolutely nobody else in that outside premises of like the school witnessing 11 like using that superpower. It's definitely like the scenario that I'm going to remember. Yeah, so like the clinical interaction right now with like Nancy, right now seeing like the tiny bit of portion of like the creature that basically Nancy had seen in like Will's in like Steve's. So that basically I'm going to bring like Nancy right now trying to like straight away head back. I'm going to bring Nancy by herself right now will be like heading back to like the station or by herself and I'm going to bring up to like try to like and I'm considering like in an extremely unlucky manner for like Nancy I'm considering like there will be only that place to subordinate of like Hopper, Chief Hopper. That would be like Hopper would be not present precisely during that time at like the stations like the scenario that I was doing. There will be only that two subordinates of Hopper that I was only present would be present during that exact time in like the stations, like the scenario that I was through. So like I'm possibly Nancy totally desperately trying to convince them like that basically that monster like thing that they think she had seen at Steve's home was like the first, it's like the first monster and like basically Nancy trying to convince them by showing like the photo of like Barbara's lab scene sitting by the swimming pool and like so basically, like in that photo, like Chance is really trying to convince them that like that what's like seen in that form of area. in like the side area of like the photo is actually the precise most of that shit. So like, but like I was bring like those two subordinates totally not straight away, not dismissing that, not believing that, and then bring like them to totally those two subordinates of like Hopper and Boston right and totally and naively assuming that basically it's like something else and it's just like I'm bringing them not thinking along the lines of like the possibility of that is actually like Nancy being true, but like I'm supposed to bring them totally like instead like thinking that that's like totally something else or like it's like the scenario that I'm about to bring. So definitely that's like the scenario that I'm about to bring and Nancy's attempt to like convince like the police like totally failing is like the scenario that I'm about to bring. So like Nancy would be like extremely disappointed and I'm going to bring like Nancy angrily like maybe even shouting at like the subordinate and basically Nancy leaving expectation is like the scenario that I'm about to bring. Precisely at the point like that Nancy will be like leaving the station and heading back home and was running maybe like Nancy to that sea to totally run into Will's brother Jonathan at that point. That's like one possibility that I'm also bringing. And like at that point like Nancy is totally straight away like going up to Jonathan and basically showing Jonathan that the photo of Barbara and like Nancy totally trying to like convince Jonathan that because like at that point from Nancy's point of view Nancy is totally feeling as if like the only person in like the world right now that would believe or like properly listen to Nancy would only be like Jonathan would be along the lines Nancy would be feeling at that point, especially because of like Nancy right now definitely feeling like Nancy's mother is not listening to her and like to bring the scenario where like Nancy would be trying to like sell and convince like the subordinates of Copper and them as well failing to like understand. It's like the scenario that I'm going to bring. So at that point, like Nancy would be like totally feeling helpless, and Nancy would be totally definitely would be like sure that basically neither Steve as well is not going to be able to like believe Nancy, or even if Nancy shows the photo, like even Steve as well is not going to believe Nancy would be along the lines Nancy would be feeling at that point. It's like scenario that I'm going to do. So like at that point, about to bring when the scenario to be like Nancy by returning back from like the station to her home, like running into Jonathan, and Nancy straight away feeling that like. Jonathan would be like the only person that would be able to like uh, would be able to like believe Nancy would be along the lines Nancy would be feeling. And I'm also regardless of that Jonathan like taking on the board of developing like definitely Nancy would be like totally disappointed in Jonathan from Jonathan doing that, but like still considering like the worry of like the uncertainty of like of Barbara, like basically that would be like the only thing in Nancy's mind right at that point. So like I'm considering Nancy straight away going up to Jonathan and Nancy telling Jonathan showing Jonathan like the photo of like the creature and like the corner of like the photo and I was bring like at that point I was maybe I was like Jonathan totally at that point maybe being shocked and maybe like remembering the things that basically his Jonathan's mother had told Jonathan that he had been chased by like a creature um, without a face like basically like Jonathan being able to connect these two things with like the scenario that I was referring. So that from that point on, was Nancy and Jonathan and Nancy would be like totally feeling relieved at that point that there's at least one person that basically at least that believes Nancy. It's like the scenario that I'm looking and from that point on, like Nancy and Jonathan spending a lot of time together, like trying to figure this out. And I'm looking like Jonathan and I'm also bringing like the scenario to be like Jonathan deciding to like get that photo precisely as soon as possible to Hopper. But like I'm also bringing and before that, like I'm also bringing like Hopper basically would be like returning back to like the stations. And like before I'm going to bring Jonathan will be meeting Hopper. I'm going to bring even before that, like I'm going to bring while Hopper would be like returning back to the station, like those two subordinates Hopper would be present there and like they would be casually talking about like and maybe even making fun of like Nancy's like Nancy's for like a report or like a complaint and fun of like what Nancy had told them about like this creature in like the phone and all that like basically like I'm going to bring at that point these two governors will be making talking between each other and making fun of like Nancy and at that point would be when like Copper will be showing up and also bring Copper seeing or hearing their conversation. So like at that point Copper straight away asking them what happened like what is it. And was about these two subordinate like in like a casual manner like telling about the like uh, that girl Nancy is only thing as it like the like a creature in like the photos and all that. And at that point I was considering like Hopper as well. Only seeing that connecting that with like definitely with mother as well. So at that point I was considering like Hopper as well being able to like separately connect to like the whole creature with like since like especially with mother had also like told Hopper about like this creature like showing us trying to show up out of like the wall. And I was considering like this other might have also told me like Hopper after like she was chased by this creature like to that detail as well, like I was wondering mother might have tried desperately tried to like convince Hopper and say, but like I was with this through his Hopper subordinates like when Hopper was scared like the conversation about like what Nancy said about like the prince or like the photo like at that point I was thinking like Hopper genuinely seeing this as like a genuine positive and like an actual like creature like humanoid like creature being like the being like the culprit behind like the disappearance and all that like only thinking and of such lines and of such positives like the scenario that I'm going to bring. So like about to bring at that point like Hopper straight away even before meeting like with Mother like Hopper would be like at that point straight away heading off to like find Nancy and like that way like about to bring like by then Jonathan and Nancy would be like maybe like around the way like maybe Jonathan and Nancy would be like running would be like at that point hurrying back trying to like find Hopper and Nancy would be only with like Jonathan at that point like the scenario that I'm going to be. So precisely maybe at that point like Hopper would be precisely at that point that when Hopper would be definitely wanting to like see Nancy that I'm going to bring like Jonathan would be the personally calling Hopper at that precise point and Jonathan telling about like the photo and like the picture and them meeting up and basically like I'm going to bring like at that point like offer to then seeing like the photo and basically seeing the trace of in like that photo and from that point definitely Hopper will be only genuinely thinking along the lines of like that basically Hopper genuinely indefinitely that creature would definitely have connection to like the experiments to future experiments being conducted at like the energy level of web just like the scenario that I was like from that point Hopper being able to connect the dots and reach and precisely at that point realizing like that like it's like that was for the highest top priority at that point of realizing that would be to definitely investigate like private laboratory properly for to be able to like do that. So like I was thinking maybe at that point like maybe like so like Hopper only maybe like and at that point I was wondering maybe Hopper once again like quickly travel back to like the energy laboratory of private and trying to like once again enter and investigate. But like at that point like Hopper being prevented from entering into from being able to like enter into like the energy laboratory. Like the scenario that I was thinking, and I was thinking maybe like and definitely at that point I was thinking Hopper totally heading back Hopper and you know with like maybe Jonathan as well as Nancy like heading to precisely Will's home and then them all sharing like everything they have experienced or like related to the creature and everything, like basically like them talking to Will's mother and basically them exchanging information and everything and then bring after hearing all that like I'm going to bring up to see determined to like most likely secretly infiltrate into like the energy laboratory of private and investigate like with that and then I'm also bring maybe like Hopper in like the that might like itself like maybe like steadily like entering into infiltrating into that trying to infiltrate and maybe infiltrating into like our runners like energy laboratory and those everything. So the Hopper would be that Hopper at that point would definitely have like a camera with him and Hopper taking investigating and taking photos of that activity easy. But like I'm still something like that's all the pathway where like Shepherd, where Brenner like some I think is like or like a spare scientist would be like the place person Shepherd, scientist Shepherd who is like right now entering into like that my brother is that like the precise area into which like is entering into would be like that portal like spring that connecting place between like the real world and like the parallel world is definitely my brother. So like I'm going to physically my brother that like Shepard would be like the first person that might have taken the life of like the parallel world version of Vince and might have brought his body and placed it onto like the lake and to totally to like basically to totally trick like the public from thinking that Vince had the real world that Vince had actually died. And I'm also saying like right now with like that Shepard entering once again to just the parallel world area like he will be attempting to like basically find either the real world version of Barbara or like the parallel world version of Barbara, and regardless of whom he finds, like his orders given to him by orders given to Shepard by Brenner would be to like precisely find Barbara and take her life and basically leave her body as well somewhere, and trying to like that way trick like the bubbling it to not being able to like trace like this whole disappearance and death of these two victims to like basically run up like that to cover up Renner's track like with the Renner's plan. So like I was wondering while Hopper would be like the middle of the night would be like stealthily, and I'm also bringing like scenarios to be like actually this time Shepard not getting lucky, and I'm also doing this time and Shepard would be searching for Barbara in like the random world. I'm also even though there's that line cable attached to Shepard, like I'm considering like an alien like creature, like that creature showing up in like the parent world and spotting Shepard and it attacking Shepard and like most likely like abducting Shepard and leading somewhere into deep into like the parent world. Like a scenario that I'm considering. So like I'm considering the line cable quickly getting cut at a certain point, and basically at that point, and at that point, like I was really Shepard would be talking off to like the parallel world of like the scenario that I was playing. But like I was, and at that point, I was very run up for the time being of like ordering to like criminal scientists to like basically feel of that area from that area for like the findings and the scenario. And I was wondering that might be something that they might even do like feel like the room that contains like the portal to like the parallel world within like the laboratory or like it might be a location that they might feel away like each and every single day after like their work at like science at the energy laboratory would go over especially by the so like I was bringing like even though in like the middle of the night I was bringing for like copper like it may infiltrate into like generally infiltrate into the laboratory and not being able to like enter into that precise room which would be like saved away like the scenario that I was about. So like at that point I was bringing copper totally having that feeling that basically this room might contain all the true secrets behind by now and like produce connection to like the alien that which is the most of like creature and everything especially by the predator. But like copper won't be able to like destroy that door and infiltrate into that room. So like I was putting copper for the finding, taking all the photos of like everything, all the other things that we would be like who not see it uh, in like Pranav laboratory. And then I also find that copper leaving like escaping from like Pranav laboratory. And like the next day I'm also find like considering my consideration for like copper bringing all the photos to that like science teacher in like HawkinsSchool. So like the scenario and like that science teacher basically like shockingly finding out a lot of things through that photos that copper would have taken and revealing all that info to that copper. And like it will be as like what that science feature will be revealing to Hopper will be definitely containing like kind of like tiny bit of like a details as to like the possibility of what might like this experiment of Braga might be. Okay, so like luckily this was very interesting right now. So that this is like as Shepard was transiting through the portal to the other side, like which would be definitely the parallel world. So like I'm thinking right since like the portal is like kind of like process in within like Corona's laboratory and considering what would be precisely on the other side of that portal would be precisely the parallel world version of like Corona's laboratory. It's definitely my book reference. And since like Corona right now it's like basically as like Shepard is like progressing that since like even Brenner and his entire science team is so extremely cautious and basically if like since like Brenner is also asking Shepard as to like what he sees there like I'm going to bring precisely so my revolution right now is that like it would be like the very first time that like Brenner is would be like actually sending someone to pass beyond that portal and to like the panels world is definitely my president. So like precisely because of this reason I'm going to talk about definitely like like the wind that had died like it would be like definitely I'm thinking in my book Emerson to be like the parallel world version of wind. But like about to bring like the parallel world version of wind like him dying might have had him showing up to like the real world and him dying might have had like absolutely nothing to do with like Brenner anything Brenner or lack of like his team had done. It's definitely my book. So like what might have happened would be like in like the middle of the night, like I was playing like the parallel world version of Will, who might have been chased by like the one of like the monsters in like the parallel world. That parallel world version of Will or trying to like escape like might have accidentally found this like portal connecting like the real world and parallel world within like parallel energy laboratory. So like that parallel version of Will might have seen this portal and might have escaped from like the parallel world through this portal is definitely what might have happened. Which definitely were looking. So like I'm looking like the monster might not be able to like pass through this portal. It's also like really might not be able to like maybe like I'm considering there might be some specific situation or like thing that would basically would be like making it extremely hard that would be right now making it extremely hard for like the monsters from like the parallel world to like pass through that precise portal. And maybe it might have to do with like something Brenner might have done. Definitely my most this would be the reason for like Brenner and his team like casually being like right in front of like the portal while it's definitely my real impression that the potential reason for like right now as like Shepard has died in like the parallel world like they even right now runner and the scale, not even trying to like get away or run away and like are standing right there in front of like the bottom will be potentially because of their that confidence that they will be having that these creatures won't be able to like pass on from like the parallel world to like the real world through that portal potentially because of runner having like done something to that portal to prevent such an entry from for like the monster creatures. Definitely the big so definitely, but certainly because of this reason, I'm wondering what might have happened would be like Will might have, like the parallel world version of Will might have in the middle of the night might have escaped from like the parallel world through the west portal and ended up might have ended up in like runners like an early laboratory. So like I'm also wondering that then like as it might have been like that might have been absolutely no one there at that point in like the middle of the night in like runners and early laboratory. So like I'm also wondering what Will might have the parallel one version Will might have done might have when he might have wanted to like escape like runners laboratory. So like he might have perfectly found that precise tunnel through which like 11 had initially escaped from runners laboratory. So like I'm wondering through that precise tunnel and like I'm wondering like the parallel world version of Will might have entered that forest and I'm also bring there, like I'm also bring there maybe like the first like I'm also bring like maybe definitely there will be other alien like the small like creatures that might have be present in like the and like and I'm also bring like definitely it wouldn't be just like a single monster like creature that had basically like showed up where like Nancy had basically was expecting like Steve's home for like Barbara. But there will be other monster like creatures that might have entered into the real world through like all these light sources maybe during like 8 o'clock. That would be present around like the fourth like area. Definitely my so like one of those monster like creature like when like the parent world version of Will might have entered into made it to that form like one of like that monster like creature might have been able to like detect because of like Will having like even like the parallel world version of Will might have had like high IQ. So like kind of different one of like those monster like creature might have detected like the parallel world version of Will purpose. So like one of those monster like that might have been present in that box might have detected Will and might have chased after Will. So like at that point like Will might have totally in the parallel world version of Will might have totally Will try to like get away from like the monster and so like he might have only ran into like basically that area and basically might have fallen from there and might have landed from next to it. And since like the sheriff himself had basically like Pop himself in like, the beginning had told how like basically falling from that height into like that person like would definitely get a certain depth. So like I think that might feel how like the parallel world version of Will might have died is definitely where they so like it might have not had any direct involvement of like Panera like a manual version of Winx that might not have had like any direct involvement from Brenner and his team that live at Oakville. So like I'm considering that, but like what like when you said you said about like when Brenner and his team had found out about like some missing person like like basically his body being found, and basically I'm considering maybe that. And I'm also like somehow Brenner and his team might have been informed quickly. So like there will be like runners people connected to like runner would be like in all sorts of like high position areas. So like a different runner might have been quickly informed about like uh, Will's dead body, and about to friend straight away like Will might have I mean like runner might have sent his met and to like basically cross-check if it's like the actual win or like the parallel version of win, and maybe they might have found out that it's like the parallel version of win. So like that might be the as a reason for like that person Gary him like totally being prevented from doing the other sort of thing, and basically it being like pronouncement alone that person being put in charge of like the auto and everything. And that it was that will be the reason for like them definitely Brenner and men would be well fully aware that it's not the actual will and like it's like the parallel version of will, and that will be the reason for like them not even allowing Will's own mother to like basically see like the body of Will. Basically, like Sam trying to like literally trying to like force Will's mother to like sign the papers and documents. Like you'll be perfectly due to like Runner and the entire team being well and fully aware that like the Will's body. The will that has died like not the actual will but like the parallel version of will is definitely my personal impression right now. So like definitely was very impression right now as for like Brenner being so extremely like disturbed about like shepherds that like basically like that would be especially due to like basically like shepherd would definitely be not only Brenner's son but like shepherd would be also like the second most brilliant scientist in like Brenner laboratory after Brenner also the leader in this. This would be like the same reason for like Brenner like coffee being so disturbed with like shepherds that never do very impressive. So like I'm considering like the reason for like Brenner even sending Shepherd with the line cable through like the popular to be exactly for like Brenner might have wanted to like Brenner might have only seen like the portal as basically might have wanted to like use the portal to like go to like the parallel world version of like Brenner's lab and to see that and to like see all like to inspect all the documents and everything from there so that like maybe that Brenner might have felt like there might like that it's just something extremely valuable there if like the parallel world version of Brenner has like further these experiments have reached far like advanced far better than like runners like science experiments like doctors like those different then for like runner to like feel all that like progress and so that like runner could like further his uh science research progress and everything experiment progress and everything it's definitely also not possible maybe like in even in like the current experiment of runner maybe involving 11 like runner might have reached the point where like a runner might have not been able to like progress further. Like runner himself might have reached the point of like confusion where like runner might have not been able to like figure out like what exactly he has to do. Neither runner or his second friend team might have reached this like a roadblock like a situation where like they might not know how to like bypass that situation for the and that would be like the only way for them to like progress further in like their experiment and everything is also definitely my consideration. So like maybe right now by sending Shepherd to the parallel world version of Netrunner's lab, Runner might have been trying to like see the solution to like how to bypass that obstruction through like the by inspecting and getting taking out stealing information from like the parallel world Runner's like laboratory. Might have been like what Brenner and the science team might have right now attempted through sending Shepherd through like the bottom. It's definitely my particular answer right. Also, like the limit in I'm tension right now is like a mic right now pushing the bully throw it down. Like I'm thinking right now the like society of like throwing will be getting up and straight away trying to like attack like that's like the scenario that I'm going to do. But like at that very second itself I'm considering right now for Mike definitely I'm considering that Mike would be even though Mike attacking like Troy would have absolutely nothing to do at all with like Mike wanting to like get back at Troy or anything. Solely due to like 11% beside Mike, like Mike wanting to like get back on like Troy or anything like definitely won't be able to do any of that. It would probably have to do with like Mike being in that an emotional situation with like the whole somebody in like the gym plays like with like about like with and all that like Mike like being in like an emotional like mindset and basically just like throwing making fun of like when was like considering like that would be the sole reason that like Mike would be totally acting out in like an emotional manner might have been what like Mike pushing the act of Mike uh pushing down Troy would have been definitely my personal impression. So like I'm considering but like right now with like Troy about to attack Mike, like I'm about to bring that right now. Maybe I'm about to bring like Mike would be like only remembering that like Eleven is beside, standing beside Mike. So like I'm about to bring like definitely by now with like everything Eleven has said and done for like Mike. I'm about to bring Mike would be right now having that absolute trust in like Eleven that like Eleven with her superpowers won't be even at all allowing Troy to like hurt Mike as long as Eleven like beside Mike would be that confident that I'm considering Mike will be happy. So like right now, as like Troy will be getting up and straight away will be trying to like attack Mike. But like at that point, since I'm going to bring Mike, not just getting scared or like trying to like run away or anything. Like, I'm just bring right then still like Mike with the confidence of like having 11 by his side. Like I'm going to bring Mike totally throwing like throwing this fist at Troy. But like I'm about to bring like at that point itself, like I'm about to bring 11 would be like precisely timing her superpower in like an extremely controlled manner. So that like to all the great number of students that are like witnessing this like fight, I'm about to bring it would only to them it would only feel as if like Mike had done some sort of like a martial arts training. It would be along the lines it would be feeling to them. And that way, like Mike is like a lot stronger. Like the whole superpower element and considering not getting exposed, even while 11 would be like he's granting her powers to like Mike. Precisely signing it precisely as Mike would be thrown his like punches, like the scenario that I'm going to bring. So like I'm going to bring like with all those great students, great number of crowd like of students like this will be nothing to fight. Like none of them like even expecting any like superpowers or anything is like the scenario that I am delivering. And that way like I'm delivering, but still I'm delivering like for like for Troy and to like for and bully those two delivering would be getting totally like getting like cleared out like the scenario and I'm delivering then getting scared and I'm delivering like them totally running away. It's like the scenario that I'm delivering and that way like I'm delivering like that crowd of students like only seeing like Mike suddenly getting this like hero image in front of like all those great number of crowd of students is like the scenario that I'm also bringing. And I'm also probably bring like Mike getting a lot of uh, a lot of like totally falling for Mike as well. With like this just with like them being like that much impressed with like this one fight of Mike against like Troy, like that impressing a lot of girls as well. It's like the scenario that I'm also totally protect and my cousin very impressive. But like definitely Mike would be definitely the only person that Mike would get only falling for and having that affectionate feeling towards would be still would be always remaining as like 11 and 11 and now. It's like the winter scenario that I'm going only protect and my secondary impression. So definitely my secondary impression is certainly for like the fight between Mike and Troy is totally like getting them both into trouble. But like I'm going like the fight between Mike and Troy would be the I'm going with that Troy is totally losing against like Mike and like the fight like I'm supposed to bring, but still before like the fight would be over, I'm just right now also pushing the moving tape like before the fight would be over, like I'm going to bring like one of the teachers to like basically who's happening to like see this fight, and I'm going to bring like that way Mike and Roy getting into trouble and Mike and Roy being called to like the principal's room, and I'm going to bring like the about to bring like the principal, even though he would be well and fully aware of like how close Bill was to like Mike and his for example, bring like the principal to like still kind of like scold kind of like scold Mike as well as like Troy. So, like the scenario that I was bring, but like I'm also bring like right and it's for like the science teacher to like the reminder like him talking on behalf of Mike on like the side of Mike and like to like how close he was with like Bill and detailing out and kind of like that way. So like I'm solely due to like the science teacher showing up on the kind still solely due to that reason alone like Mike and Troy not being punished by like the principal is like the scenario that I made it. So but still I'm also bring like after like Mike would be returning from like from the room and was bring like the science teacher totally at that point would be telling Mike and his like friends that like I'm going to take back my offer of like letting you use like the radio. So like the scenario that I'm going to bring for like the science teacher to tell Mike and his friends. That would be like that's like the scenario that I'm going to only bring and and at that point, I'm also like that, like I'm also like Mike and his friends losing their access to like the radios, like the scenario that I'm also and then I'm also like uh eventually I'm considering like my kind of friends like in like the middle of the night, like taking out of the phone and basically solely to like use the radio, like in like the school. So like that way in the middle of the night, like them secretly infiltrating into like the school. And then considering like them stealthily somehow managing to like open like the lock door to like the room containing like the radio within the school. And that way like the middle of the night, like Mike and his friends like totally along with like 11 like secretly infiltrating into the school and like in the middle of the night like then secretly using like the radio like that to come and that at that point would be when like they would all my friends would be like for the first time would be like along with like my as well would be like for like the first time they would be actually able to like actually communicate and talk to talk a bit rather than hearing like singing or anything like at this time I'm considering like it would be like an actual communication and interaction with, like, between like Mike and his friends and Will. That's like for things that happen. And I'm just bringing that happening either on this very same night or like on the very next night of the very next day. It's like the possible scenarios. So in the scenario, sequence of things and like the scenario that I'm also bringing on the Korean version. Okay, so like definitely my personal impression right now with like the current situation of like the issue between like Mike and Roy instead of turning into a fight since turned into like Roy embarrassing himself in front of like all those great number of proud students like I'm bring this would totally turned Mike into like such an ultimate target for Roy. It's like the scenario that I'm bring. Definitely Roy from this point on would be precisely and specifically targeting Mike and I'm bring precisely while Mike and his friends would be on their way back home with like 11. At that point, I'm about to bring Troy totally showing up there. And I'm about to bring, most likely, I'm about to bring it would be like Troy all by himself that I'm about to bring would be showing up. And I'm about to bring like Troy totally deciding to like pick a fight with like Mike. Like the scenario that I'm looking to once again pick up fight with like Mike. It's like the scenario that I'm looking to bring. And at that point, I'm going to bring uh, at that point, like I'm going to bring like Troy once again trying to like attack Mike and basically at that point like maybe I'm supposed to bring up that point definitely for like elements to like use the superpowers and basically send Troy flying and basically landing a, a bit distance back like the scenario that I'm going to bring and at that point I'm going to bring Troy being like that but only absolutely so back to like what's happening and basically Troy once again charging towards like Mike and trying to attack Mike and once again like when using her powers and basically Troy once again falling backwards like the scenario that I'm considering. And at that point I'm considering like it will be totally confirmed for Troy that basically it's precisely that mysterious girl, Eleanor, that like the mysterious girl like Eleanor that's like basically she has superpowers like basically at that point Troy unfortunately realizing that and considering like Troy basically at that point running away from that location and considering like Troy at that point like trying to tell that to like the others like Troy trying to like first of all really trying to like convince his friends about the girls having like superpowers and all that. So like I'm considering that kid, I'm considering definitely not believing Troy is like the scenario that I'm considering. Yet like I'm considering like Troy would be like from that point on, even though I'm considering still Troy would be like definitely determined to like figure out like the reason behind like the movers and then or like the scenario that I'm considering. So like I'm considering from that point on like whenever like my kind of friends along with like 11 will be like stepping out with the for investigation of like the pair at that point each and every single time I'm considering Troy would be like stealthily like totally stalking Mike and the friends and 11 always and I'm considering like or like him not giving up and him wanting to like know the truth behind like the mysterious powers of Eleanor and things determined manner like him stalking and basically with like the intent to like expose the fact that Eleanor has superpowers to everybody like basically with that intent like him basically giving on stalking Mike and his friends and 11 is towards like the future like giving the future scenario that involves only for the and about the point also the since of the Troy to like definitely usually be the try to like expose to like the rest of the world to everyone that basically Eleanor has superpowers like basically to be precisely due to like Amber like precisely Troy will be noticing like the second time Troy Amber would be trying to pick a fight with Mike at that point, once like 11 would be using her powers and protecting Mike. Like at that point, Troy, since I was bring at that point to be when like Troy will be probably realizing that like the superpowers uh, about like the superpowers and it belong like obviously Eleanor having superpowers at that point in time. The super like he will be also one thing. One other thing that Roy is figuring out as well would be like that like Mike and his friends are totally insecure about like basically Eleanor like the superpowers about like anyone finding out about like Eleanor superpowers. So like I'm preferring that would be eventually that way eventually I'm preferring like Roy would be like only at that point would be kind of fully aware that like he won't be able to like fight Mike or like basically but like as long as you know beside Mike, but like he could like at least get revenge by basically exposing the fact that Eleanor has set up to like everybody else like so like basically and that way to get back at Mike and his friends like Ambassador and Eleanor like Ambassador like him friendly trying to like basically maybe using like maybe getting a camera and basically trying to like that way maybe even secretly trying to like record videos and basically that way like being on the fifth plus with that app with this app to like get revenge on Mike and Eleanor and my friends like by exactly trying to throw to like the uh you get the news to like the rest of the world that Eleanor has superpowers like the eventual scenario that I'm looking for and also version. So like the fully notice brand direction right now it's for like Reynolds team like basically Reynolds people like basically telling like the police that had found like Will's body to like ensure that nobody is able to like get close to like this body. Definitely would be precisely because of them like Renner and his team being like most likely the first two like have found like Will's body and I'm going to contact them uh, like having checked Will's body and like figured out that basically it's not like the because like I'm going to bring like they might even have access to like the original Will, all sorts of that concerning to like the original Will. So like I'm going to bring that they might have been able to that way figure out that like this is not like the original Will but like the parallel version of Will. So like I'm going to bring like them giving the order to like this precise um precise Willman or to claims to have found uh just people to have found when like I'm would be precisely giving that order to him to like precisely not ensure that absolutely no one is able to get close. We precisely due to like the for enough people like fearing like about what they are like if it is someone peacefully close to Will's mother or like his brother or like any other people who are like extremely close to Will and knows of like the marks on Will's body, like them totally being able to figure out that like the body that's the dead body, even though just like the similarity of Will is like it looks exactly like Will, still it's not Will. Like so, in order to ensure that absolutely people that are close to Will doesn't figure out that like it's not Will. But it would be like the precise reasons for like giving such an order to like that policeman to ensure that absolutely no one is able to like get close to like this that body. It's definitely my the impression right now. Also, like definitely my the impression right now through like Hopper's interrogation of that policeman and Hopper finding out about like orders given to that policeman to like ensure that absolutely no one gets close to like uh Bill's body, that body like basically with that coupled with like ambassador like Will's mother, like everything that Will's mother was like repeatedly telling Hopper that basically that's not Will's body. Like basically that coupled with like right now itself I'm basically like Jonathan totally calling Sheriff Hopper right now itself wanting to like and telling about like the whole without much great delay or like telling revealing showing Hopper like the photos of like Nancy and basically even revealing to like Hopper about precisely like the man without the face like basically like that and connecting Hopper, connecting that with like everything that Wynn's mother had told to Hopper about like the very same detail about like the man without the face. Like all this like I'm definitely from that point on like Hopper would be like absolutely straight away going to like meet Wynn's mother and everything. From that point on like Hopper would be definitely patiently and seriously listening to like each and every single detail that Wynn's mother have to say and from that point on it would just be Hopper but like Jonathan as well as Nancy. Everyone would be like totally like seeing Will's mother as not so crazy and basically that everything she was saying was like the exact right thing and true. Like basically, they're more collectively realizing it at that point, and I'm considering that definitely will home. I'm considering definitely would be like an important location for like hopper for like hopper investigations. Definitely like because like I'm considering like if this is like each and every single time will have really communicated to like the real world since it was always through uh, the home of Will like consistently because of that like Hopper telling like Will's mother to basically Hopper and helping Will's mother out a lot from this point of it's definitely also like the scenario where like until this time it was like Will's mother all by herself trying to find Will and basically from this point on considering definitely it would be like Jonathan, Nancy as well as like Hopper all would be with like Will's mother like lending all of their help to like especially find Will and Barbara like the scenario that I'm going to run it again with the impression. And so like according to my Jyotikriya impression, I'm also predicting the possibility that I'm switching on to that of like a different possible scenario where like eventually with like right now itself like without much creative like offer like gaining like false knowledge and basically like that way being able to like trust and believe like when everything Will's mother has to say like and on seeing like the theory like in like Will's home like at that point maybe like offer also thinking along the lines as to like not focus on just like Will home, but like instead like Hopper even coming up with the brilliant strategy to like maybe like by I'm not surprised that way like I'm not surprised using that strategy I'm not surprised like Hopper maybe like decorating like the entirety of like the town of Hawkins with like fairy lights and I'm considering like Hopper like basically making some sort of like an excuse of like a reason and that way maybe like tricking everyone and basically put like fairy lights all throughout like the town of Hawkins so that like so that way we able to like certainly be able to like even more be able to like with precision would be able to like track down will and all that. It's like basically that way for pulling out something of type that level of a strategical attempt is also like an eventual possible scenario that I'm different and sensing on to. Also like personally I was very attention right now that like 11 about to like use such a powerful to like the school radio like I'm considering maybe right now for like things not going according to like Mike and 11 favor. It's also like about that I'm thing. And I'm considering it might be solely due to like and that way like Mike 11 not being able to like communicate with like Will right now. It's also like about that I'm considering and I'm considering like the reason will be like 11 like without much gap at all like using her superpowers, especially with like the each and every time 11 would be using her superpower definitely it would be taking a toll on 11 maybe like it even like it would be taking a lot of mental power to like use for that superpower, which like 11 body might not be able to like handle at like the current age of 11. It's also like my personal impression that I'm sitting on this. So like I'm doing precisely because of this the reason would be like the reason for like the north grade of 11 whenever she uses some sort of power. So like precisely it's collectively because of all the reasons like against like Roy 11 had just now used her superpower like and so already right now 11 is like once again being forced to like basically use her superpower to like basically communicate with right now through like the radio and considering right now for like 11 not being able to like fully use her superpower at its like full power and that possibly resulting in like 11 not on top of like 11 once again getting like the nose way like 11 getting like exhausted and like that attempt as well totally result yielding no result which like also like the elements like attempt to like connect like the frequency with like the radio phone of will which will be present with like in next apparel but definitely that attempt totally failing and at that point like Lucas as well as Dustin possibly not starting to like once again have the frustration come back again against like Mike as well as 11. So also like a possibility that I'm considering. So like maybe the at the current at the failing and I'm considering eventually I'm considering it will be like the Mike still somehow managing to like convince like Dustin and Lucas and I'm considering maybe it would be like after like 11 getting proper rest in them giving 11 proper rest and basically after that like one like the next time they would be like stealthily using like the radio in like the store. Maybe it would be like the next time that 11 would be able to like successfully connect with the frequency of the radio phone of like Will in like the panel, but I'm it will be only the next time like basically Mike my friends would be able to like hear Will from like the parallel world for like the first time. After like this fear, like basically that also being like a possible scenario is also like a possibility that I'm basically something right now in moving brain right now. Okay, so like the film of the brain right now for like the sort of like the person that brain right now is like hopefully trying to make 11 and like listen to like that person like what like that says experiment of Brenner right now and the Brenner would be most likely Brenner trying to like basically use 11 to like try to like listen to like the words of like shepherd the shepherd representative that photo would be like shepherd would be definitely Brenner from and basically that photo would be that of like shepherd definitely my favorite so like I was thinking maybe like uh maybe I was thinking like so like my real impression right now is that like Burner right now what we're trying to like use 11 to like basically either communicate or listen to like what his parallel word version of like his son Shepherd will see like doing in like the parallel world is definitely very impressive. So like this will be what like in this current experiment in this like proves like Brenner would be trying to use 11 to like listen to the professor in like the photo that would be definitely Shepherd is definitely very good. So like Brenner might have actually tried using this very safe technique with like 11 and trying to like listen to like the speaking of like the parallel word version of Brunner is definitely my book favorite. So like that attempt might have only failed and I was wondering maybe like 11 might have told Brunner that like he has died. So like I might have mentioned like that like maybe like initially like Brunner might have placed like a photo of himself and basically might have told 11 to like to listen to what this person is saying in like this person in like the parallel world is saying. So like at that point, 11 might have told Pranav that basically this person doesn't exist in like the parallel world. Would be along the lines like 11 might have told Pranav. So like at that point, Pranav might have been when Pranav might have realized that his parallel version has died. So like then Bhakti like Pranav might have decided to like make 11 communicate or like be able to like listen to and try to see if like the parallel version of like Pranav son Shepherd is like alive or not. So like this would all be like definitely for Pranav to like just selfishly like progress further to take the easy road and for him to like progress further into like experience or like I was bring there might have been like an absolute blockage into like blockage or like an obstacle in his like in finding a solution to Pranav experiments. So like I was bringing not to like bypass that would be like the safer reason for like Brenner possibly when using 11 to try to like be able to like see what like Shepherd is like speaking in like the parallel word version of Shepherd is like speaking in like the parallel word. So like that way to like see if like basically and this will be also like an attempt not just to like listen to like the parallel word version of Shepherd, but also like Brenner might want to like communicate with him and to like possibly that way as well to like seek a solution to like Brenner's like current situation. It's also like experimental blockage like situations also definitely my book remember. So like that photo would be definitely it's a photo of Shepherd. Definitely my book remembers and Brenner would be attempting to try to like use 11 to like trying to like communicate to like the parallel version of Shepherd is definitely my book remember. Also like definitely my book remember right now and for like since like the thing translucent kind of like wall through which that which not a find was able to like see with and it was able to like see it was like basically it's in black my book remembers is definitely that pink translucent wall would be definitely similar to like the very same pink portal in within like runners like an umbrella was through which like Shepherd had passed through the line cable and died and everything. It's definitely one of the famous. So like I was saying, in order to not for the like translucent thing wall, in order for it to be able to like be created like I'm saying like electrical and the process of electricity and electrical energy will be essential. The planar is the so like I was saying, it would be precisely because of like all the illumination lights and all the music and everything like all this like having electricity like I'm saying like that might have definitely been like a definite fact in like basically right now like precisely not just right now but like even previously like basically when like the monster creature have appeared out of like the wall of like tried to like appear and once like even passed on through the wall of like will form like basically or that point definitely like the common factor might have definitely in that basically all the electricity is present in that house home is definitely my percent. So in order for like electricity being like a huge fact that allows in allowing like the alien monster to be able to like try to like uh, come from like the parallel world to like the real world, like all this like being possible would definitely have to do like run of experiments, like all sorts of experiments that Brenner might have done, like I'm referring definitely it might have created this portal, and I'm referring like in the case of like Brenner's like energy laboratory alone, like basically it's the portal remaining and staying open, which totally would have to do with like the things Brenner might have done there. With like the electrical power source being like that much like way more intense, there would be like the precise reason for like uh, with that electrical source in like Brenner's like electrical energy laboratory would be like precisely whenever due to like these monsters, like whenever like one of like any electrical device or anything gets like damaged, like the supply of electricity and electrical energy towards like runners like energy laboratories would be always like runner will always ensure that like there's like or that like supply of like electrical energy and electricity towards like runners like energy laboratory at all times, and that will be like that coupled with like the experience that runners might have done to basically open up this portal might be like the sole reason for like the portal in like Brenner like kind of the laboratory alone being able to like remain and stay open while the very same portal would be precisely what would have totally opened up and allowed like right now for Will to be able to come to that Will's mother and Will's mother to even be able to like see Will supplement the payments. So that's the reason for like it quickly closing up would be precisely because of like the electrical energy within like Will's home being drained away like quickly itself is definitely my payments. So like it's so my question right now it's got like been shouting out from like the battle world to like Will's mother that basically is totally dark out there. Like I'm not sorry, especially when Barbara as well was like abducted by the aliens by the monster as well. When Barbara wakes up in like the enters into like the parallel world, like at that point even Steve's home as well being like fully dark and everything without any lights at all. It would all have to do with like in my memory impression that I'm putting onto that basically it all might have began like this like humanoid monsters in like the parallel world, like that all might have only began with like Brenner's like the parallel world version of like Brenner's like experiment on like the parallel world version of 11. It's like 11 premise. So like Brenner's experiment like going wrong and basically with like 11 turning into like the first humanoid like monster. And I'm going to bring like that humanoid like monster might have like straight away attacked and taken the life of 11. Straight taken the life of like Brenner and his like science team, and like I'm going to bring like that alien like monster like basically which in like the parallel world which would have definitely been like the parallel version of 11 that it might have laid eggs as well. It's definitely my version of it, and that way like it might be able to like lay eggs on its own, and considering like that way like the humanoid monster like creatures like might have spread all across like the parallel world, and basically they are like I'm considering that even due to like the parallel world spread of like experiments like 11 might have the parallel version of 11 who turned into like that monster humanoid creature might have all these humanoid monster creatures might have like the power to be able to like for fields of travel like they might have had like the power to be able to like travel through electricity is definitely my good impression. So electricity and wires and electric source and everything is definitely my good impression. So like we prepare, but like because of foreigners like going wrong and again the community time these creatures would be passing through traveling through like electrical wires or cables like at that point electrical sources like that source would be getting damages like the scenario as for what might have happened in like in like the parallel world of the film movie. So like I was just like with like these like humanoid monsters like creatures like multiplying and basically might have totally fully taken over like the parallel world, and with them traveling over like everywhere across like spreading across like the parallel world with their each of the travel of like each of these monsters like they might these monsters might absorb electrical energy and be able to like travel through like electrical wires that way. So like about that I'm so like whenever each of these humanoid monsters will be traveling through electrical shocks, like that source would be getting damaged. So like that way, like the entirety of like the world and like the parallel world might have turned dark with like absolutely and with like and I'm considering like all of like the parallel world version of humans in like the parallel world might have the majority of them might have been like taken the life of by these aliens by this like monster like creatures and basically that like so like and so like that way these monster human creatures might have taken over like the entirety almost like the entirety of like the parallel world is definitely my reason. This might be the reason for like even it will when communication will right now had communicated with like this mother like will might have definitely been in will form exactly but in like the parallel world, it's definitely my best time. But and hence why it would be dark even there. It's definitely my even in like when home in like the parallel world, it's definitely my best movie ambition. Also, like what we are movie ambition right now with like its mother using some axon to like the wall of a house. Like I'm sure that would definitely be pointless and like the sole reason for that attempt being pointless is only because of like that translucent thing like portal like gate closing up before like Will's mother using the axe. So definitely my best remember. Like this might have been also what Professor Brenner might have even done into like energy laboratory by using all of this like electrical power sources to like precisely open up this like portal and basically before it closing up like about the Brenner and his science team might have like destroyed like that translucent like portal like thing before it closes and that way like that portal might be like always remaining open in an open like state and that would be like total reason for like the portal in like Brenner's laboratory alone not closing up while like the portal in like a big home as is like closing up. The people especially because of that reason it's definitely my favorite. So like I'm looking eventually definitely for like big mother for like figuring this out and I'm considering the next time Will's mother like not the next time but like eventually I'm considering like Will's mother for like figuring this out. That basically that there's a reason for like her using like the axe on the wall and basically still her not being able to like reach the node is only due to like that thing translucent like proper like thing floating up. So like I'm preferring like her like that her sponsors intend to like really break that this translucent portal like I'm preferring her consciously like playing music eventually and basically that way like the portal opening up and at that point I'm preferring this number eventually in like the future like basically opening up the portal that way and before closing up like with mother using the add onto like that portal and that way like that portal actually breaking and like the portal being opened exactly like how it's like it was exactly opened so and that way like prevented totally will be that way being stopped from that getting stopped from automatically closing up exactly like Brenner's laboratory. I'm considering like that way like a whole towards like the parallel dimension like actually being like probably with some other being able to like eventually create this, like the scenario that I'm considering through which like that I'm considering historic hopper as well as like with mother would be definitely passing through that portal like cut open like portal and they would be entering like the parallel world and like definitely it would be precisely hopper that would be entering through there and I'm considering Hopper maybe telling like with some other feel like that it's like totally dangerous that she should stay like and then was the point like his mother is not at all agreeing to that and was the point that initially them both like maybe like entering into like the parallel world and through like maybe Will's home is like the little possible scenarios that I'm considering and that them that way like maybe it would be that journey of their through like the parallel world which would be like a long journey in which like and by then I'm considering Will would put out totally even though they will be entering most likely entering to like the parallel world through like operands will most likely will be eventually entering into like the parallel world through like the portal the through like the eventually opening of like the portal through will form still I'm considering like by then like Wind would be like not presenting like the parallel world version of Wind form. Wind would have like escaped there due to like the monster like constantly chasing Will and I'm considering Will might have ended up somewhere deep within like the parallel world. So like Hopper and Will's mother like basically entering into like the parallel world and basically them eventually like going deep into like stealthily like going deep and traveling deep into like the parallel world and eventually find it in this like the scenario that I'm doing and just labor to bring that place Mike 11 as well as Mike's friends as well, like Dustin as well as like Lucas as well, definitely eventually figuring this out and them as well, probably entering through a portal and them as well entering into like the battle world with like the precise intent to find with like the scenario that I'm going to protect. And like it Mike's state, like it would be just Mike, I'm bring it to be just Mike, Lucas, Dustin, as well as 11. And I'm going to bring maybe for like another team, and that would be like the team of like maybe Jonathan as well as Nancy. Maybe like if they are going to like say Barbara them as well as a team, like without like Popper or like Wilson without finding out like them as well, totally like maybe enter through uh, the Popper in like Will form and basically like them as well, searching for like like Milan Barbara eventually like the even the possible scenario that I'm missing and like it's so like the Liverpool very important right now. Like even though through like 11 cent, like Mike and his friends right now were able to like hear like the conversation between like Will and like Mother still with like the school radio, with like the powerful school radio getting destroyed like in the process. Like I'm considering right now for like the with like I'm considering Mike and friends like without much delay like return back to step 50%. Then I'm considering them totally communicating between each other through like the frequency radio radio phones and bring their plan from that point it would be to like since they had what they had heard was like the safe conversation between like Will and Will's mother. Definitely Mike and his friends would be totally like at that point by now would be like well and fully aware that like Will's mother knows a lot would be like what they would be especially by the way like Will's mother was like interacting with like Will. I'm about to bring I'm about to bring Mike totally getting the feeling that Will's mother Mike and totally getting the feeling that Will's mother knows a lot and basically especially coupling that with like the fact that basically Eleven had pointed to like Mike and his friends to precisely Will's home as to like the precise location where Will is, especially because of all this reasons I'm about to bring like Mike and his friends like next point of like investigation and trying to get close to Will like their next point of their next point of like investigation like their next location and the main location will be precisely Will's home is definitely by this revision. So like I was bringing Mike and friends from this point on like eventually they would be like totally like going up to like Will's home and I'm preferring them so like the film of the very resources it's for like without much great delay like I was preferring like eventually Mike and friends like they will be going up to like Will's home and at that point I was preferring them not telling that Will's mother as to like then having heard through like the school radio as to like the communication between Will and his mother like I'm preferring definitely Mike would be telling his friends that we can't let Will's mother know that we know like what Will's mother knows that we have heard like Will's mother's like whole conversation with Will and all that like basically like Mike would be telling his friends that we can't let reveal that to like Will's mother precisely because of like at that point they would have to also reveal about like 11 that way like basically if the is like 11 getting into danger and them getting starting to the possibility of like 11 getting into danger and that way them as well getting into danger and considering especially solely due to like even 11 prototypes are solely due to like hiding 11 being such of like an extreme priority definitely to my and considering it solely due to that reason I'm considering my kind of like casually visiting paying a visit to like Will's mother and like them trying to like get information out of like Will's mother in like a stealthy manner by them uh, casually trying to make themselves make the interaction look normal and basically Chauvin's mother and basically then casually like talking about random things and eventually like the talk leading towards like when and basically then like also like while I'm considering while maybe Dustin would be talking to like Vince's mother and considering like Mike and Lucas maybe like casually walking around like Mike's room and to find to basically find out clues and figure things out on like their own, like them totally scanning like the entirety of Will's phone and basically to see anything that's like suspicious and basically asking like what might have happened between during that whole interaction between like Will's mother and Will like basically that way I'm considering my kind of friends like often paying a visit to like Will's mother like the scenario that ambassador totally protect, and them seeing like all the fairy lights and basically like the alphabet sound like symbol and all that like ambassador like them all like noticing like my kind of friends noticing all that and basically like definitely ambassador like definitely Mike that way like Mike and his friends like being able to figure out that basically light has something to do with like the communications being possible between like Will's mother as well as like Will that they have through the radio phone and all that. It's like along the lines that I'm looking for. But like I'm looking definitely Mike and his friends I'm definitely slipping to my birthday impression that like would be like in like would be like in like stealthy manner would be like their approach towards like Will's mother rather than then straight away meeting Will's mother and revealing about like them having heard like the conversation between like Will's mother and Mike and everything and revealing about 11. That would be like the last thing I'm considering Mike and his friends would be doing. So I'm considering like a stealthy approach from Mike and his like friends into trying to like get information, stealthily trying to get information, then visiting Will's mother and then stealthily trying to get information out of like Will's mother. And I'm also bring Mike and their friends to like always be stalking and Will's mother from that point on and basically them like steadily trying to like even enter into like Will's home when like neither Jonathan or Will's mother would be present in like Will's home at that point like Mike and his friends like steadily even uh, uh, infiltrating into like Will's home and them trying to like figure out how like Will's mother might have been able to like communicate with Will, and maybe like eventually in that process, eventually then even like accidentally finding out and seeing that portal, like that portal once again opening up in like Will's home accidentally, and basically as Mike and his friends would be present in like Will's home, and that way like Mike and his friends like for the first time after like Will's disappearance, like them having that absolute shock and them shockingly finding out like Will's exactly like how Will's mother has right now seen like Will over like the portal like about that way like Mike and his friends like shockingly along with like 11 shockingly along with 11 like basically definitely Mike and friends like shockingly seeing Will over like the portal on the other side and basically that like eventual scenario that I'm also totally putting I'm mentioning real. Yeah, so like basically the very unboxing right now with like with that body right now being revealed to be like only a dummy body like I'm also putting like definitely my very impressions and like definitely so like and properly find that out definitely I'm so putting like so it will be like the very same situation like the very same thing might have been done in the case of like the death of Sarah like Hopper's daughter as well. Definitely my very so like definitely my very impressions that right now that like Hopper thought Sarah would still be alive and she would still be trapped in like the barrel world. That's definitely my personal image. And then definitely protecting eventually like Hopper would be like if Hopper like attempt eventually as like Hopper protecting Hopper entering into like the barrel world and in like Hopper's quest to like find Will bring Hopper to like only get that absolute shocking reveal and with like him finding Sarah possibly instead of like Will. It's also like a possibility that I'm also free. So like definitely my favorite emergence right now is that Sarah is definitely alive and is present in like the battleground. So like I'm also free. Like Sarah as well might have been so like my very emergence for like what might have happened to like Hopper's daughter Sarah. But the first thing it might have been like Brenner himself like basically 15 like basically affected Sarah at one point in like the past when Sarah might have shown up to from the city to like the town of Hawkins to like meet her father, so like I'm considering Sarah might have been like actually or the husband might have been walking in like the middle of the night and I'm considering like at that point maybe Brenner and his team might have like you know for like doing the whole experiment like this was performed on 11 like I was probably like the previous 10 experiments might have been still thinking about the represent that like there might have definitely seen like previous 10 experiments on like 10 subjects and basically among those would be like Seria's daughter as well as like the daughter of Papa Sarah as well might have been definitely among them it's definitely my good friend so like I was trying in the case of Cheria's daughter, like I'm saying, like I think like she's still alive. Like Cheria's daughter is still alive, and right now with like Cheria is definitely my friend. I think like basically so. In the case of that career stock, like about what Brenner and his team might have done, might have been like first of all, he might have potentially targeted like individuals in like the and of the laboratories in like the town of Hawkins, like about maybe like Brenner might have potentially targeted individuals from like the town of Hawkins with like high IQ. So like Brenner might have abducted 10 individuals and basically might have performed this like experiments on them. It's definitely member for embracing. So like I was saying like in the case of Korea, it's not like I was saying like runners like experiment once like it might have ended and a bunch of them might have in like in the course of like basically runners like experiment ending up being like a failure like a bunch of like so the subjects might have died like but like in the case of Korea, it's not like even though the experiment might have failed like Korea's daughter might have still survived. So like I was bringing runner might have still they ended up like ended up like returning like Korea not in like a stealthy manner and so that like but still so that like the blame wouldn't fall into like runner and his laboratory. But like I was saying like when Korea's might have found her out like she might have lost her memory. So like I'm bring like she might have not have her memory. So like eventually but like I'm bring like Korea's daughter might have regained back a bit of her memory, and at that point might be when like careers might have like filed found out about like Theranos laboratory, and careers might have even filing a case against I think like has filed a case against like Theranos like so like what that might have happened in such a manner certainly my movement. So like I'm preferring maybe like the abduction of Sarah might have been something that might have happened possibly even before Sharia, the abduction of Sharia's daughter Stephanie Williams. So like back then, like I was wondering when Brenner's team might have abducted Sarah, like I was wondering, like the experiments and was differently while being performed on to like the abduct Sarah. At that point, like I was wondering in between like the experiments, I was wondering like this precise creatures from like the parallel world, monsters from like the parallel world might have even like I'm considering definitely it might maybe it might not even be like the first time this like monster like creature even entering like showing up in like foreigners laboratory into like the real world in foreigners laboratory and abducting that scientist at like the very beginning like that incident might have not been like the first incident that might have of like abduction that might have taken place in like foreigners laboratory. So also definitely a possibility that I'm going to so like I was wondering the abduction before that might have been maybe like Sarah abducted by the monster like research definitely so might have been precisely when like Brenner might have abducted Sarah and might have, was like forcing the experience of Sarah might have been and might have lost up Sarah exactly like 11 maybe it might have been during then and all that time like Sarah might have been like the news about like at all that time like Hopper might have been desperately and frantically searching for like the missing daughter Sarah. Which that what might have happened to the person to remember. So like maybe like it might have been while Sarah might have been locked and might have been present within like Brenner's laboratory. Sarah might have been like locked up in like the room by Brenner. It might be during then that I was through like maybe like the bulb through the light source in like Sarah's locked up room might have been through like how like the alien I mean like the monster like creature might have showed up there and like attacked Sarah and might have taken Sarah to like the panel world is definitely remember immersion. So like after that, like taking Sarah to like the panel world, like Sarah might have definitely managed to like escape from like the monster like freezer. But like still Sarah would be hiding somewhere deep within like the parallel world. Still in like the town of possibly would be like in like the town of Hawkins, but like still would be hiding somewhere deep within the town of Hawkins. It's definitely in like the parallel world. It's definitely my personal favorite. So especially because of all this theory and prediction that I'm just I'm going to bring like definitely Sarah would be still alive even to the present day. So like how Brenner might have tricked back then Brenner and his team might have tricked Sheriff Hopper back then might have been precisely through the very exact same method of like the dummy body tricking of like everyone which like them right now have done on Will like it's the very same thing like Brenner and team might have done in the case of like Sarah's dead body as well by like making a fake dummy dead body of Sarah and that it's like Hopper and his like mother might have because like the others, like they're not like they might have been in like such an extremely emotional state that they might have not been able to like bring themselves to like see Sarah's their daughter Sarah's body up close to like and they might have like both Hopper and his like wife might have not seen like Sarah's like dead body up close, especially my brother and sister. That way, like they might have only gotten trick. Hopper and his wife might have only gotten trick into like signing like the autopsy report. Back then, it's definitely my very impression, and maybe like that way, I'm considering like maybe that way like Hopper and his wife might have gotten trick, and like Sarah would be still alive even so in like the parent world. It's like my very intention right now. So like the flavor of the instruction right now is like copper trying to like stealthily to infiltrate into like the kind of like an agenda but when possibly like that attempt of copper definitely a physical method very much that like it would only succeed to get the point but like copper would be able to like stealthily infiltrate into like the energy level of rebuilding and search around and be able to like successfully return back but still impossible still we can remember that like copper won't be able to like pass through enter and break through the precise door that would be like tightly and sealed with like all that security, which would be that precise door leading to like that precise area within like kind of like energy laboratory where like that precise portal to leading to like the parallel world would be. So like Hopper won't be able to like make it towards there with like the scenarios that I was different. But like I was different definitely Hopper through his like secret search and investigation throughout like the energy laboratory of like Hopper figuring out that that room is where the truth lies, like where that absolute mystery and truth behind like everything that's like happening right now in life will be precisely within that room behind that door would be along the lines Hopper would be figuring out and I was figuring like the scenario to be either like Hopper doing absolutely everything he can to like break through that door but like still that door won't budging at all. It's like it would be that tough of a door with which like that room would be sealed in that like one positive that I'm bring or like I'm bring precisely as like Hopper would be attempting his to break down that door like I'm bring like till that door would be extremely tough but like as Hopper would be trying to like break down that door like I'm bring most likely the alarm going off all throughout like the entire scene of like the energy laboratory like the scenario that I'm going to bring so like I'm going to bring Hopper, like all the security that were that would be at that point standing on that would be like present in that energy laboratory who might have whom like Hopper might have totally stealthily like all of them like rushing towards that area like the scenario that I was in. So like at that point like the entire entirety of like the energy laboratory alarm going off like I'm different like Hopper being forced to like basically temporarily escape from like the energy laboratory to like attempts another try to infiltrate back into entering that process room at a different point or like at a different day. Like with that and then like Hopper deciding to like help killing as he has all the skills but to escape for like time being and that way Hopper escaping from like the energy laboratory is like the scenario that I'm considering. But like I'm considering definitely through the CCTV monitoring and everything like them that after that Hopper will be escaping like that very itself and like even the Hopper will be successfully escaping like them totally through the CCTV visuals like them totally sick finding out that it was exactly Sherlock Hopper that tried to like infiltrate uh, into their lab and basically that way them seriously tightening up the like kind of the lab security because like they were not expecting like another like attempt by Hopper in like the future. So like them seriously tightening up like their security and them precisely targeting and most likely even keeping a spy definitely to like steadily follow around specifically targeting Hopper as to like to totally steadily observe that anything and everything Hopper is doing so that they would be like steadily able to like instantly be able to like take countermeasures and all that. It's definitely like the scenario that I'm going to bring and my very much. Also like the flavor of the impressions like precisely during like photos like right now like with like copper like trying to like infiltrate into like the enter into like the energy level when like when the night temperature bring copper also getting like while doing it, while assessing that, like also getting lucky in the CCTV department as well, like the scenario that I'm observing, precisely because of like I'm observing the scenario to be like the precise people in charge of like monitoring like the CCTV carefully, even in like the left night, like them totally falling asleep. It's like the scenario that I'm observing, something like the precise person who would be like precisely in charge of like the precise CCTV monitoring like in the along the precise path through which like properly suitably infiltrating into like the precise direction of like path through which like properly precisely infiltrating into like the energy laboratory that the precise person who's in charge of that exact direction for the CCTVs in that exact direction would be precisely like coincidentally luckily for Hopper would be like only falling asleep precisely during that time like the scenario that I'm referring. That totally is making it possible for like Hopper to like infiltration into the energy laboratory uh, building right now. It's like clinical scenario that I'm only putting on the Korean.